So in today's agenda, I have the topics like we wanted to cover what is this extract, transform, and load. Why are we extracting data? Why are we requiring to transform it, and why are we loading? Where are we loading? And then can this be done without a tool? And we'll go with an ETL tool evaluation and using data services as the ETL tool is what will be the important topic that we cover in short. And then the second half of the session, mostly we would start practicing, our ETL jobs using data services. We will start defining the metadata, which means the connectivity to the source and target, and start creating batch jobs. So here is one of the scenarios I would like to tell. Why do we need to extract data? The first important question. If at all, Vandana, you'd like to take that question, go ahead. Why do we need to really extract data from one system? And why are we looking to transform or transpose the data to another system? Is there any good reason?
So you can decommission your legacy system and load data to your new system?
That is perfect, but why do we need to decommission our legacy system?
Because it's outdated and you want to move on to something better?
Yeah, perfectly all right. It's like every business in the world has not started, with $1 billion. People have started this business like centuries back, and then they were doing it without computers. So the moment computers came in, this all activity of moving of data has started. So if you look at it, even my own business, I don't use much of software applications in order to maintain the customer history or in order to maintain the transaction history. All I'm trying to do is put it into a piece of Excel sheet and then maintain it in Outlook, all the contacts. That's my CRM. Outlook has become my major CRM, But eventually, when the business grows, definitely you'd look at the IT department asking, hey, can you make it, more easier for me to access the data? Is there any way? That's where actually the extraction of data comes into picture. Or else no one would have extracted data so far because of some kind of a reason just to view the data. No, it is actually the extract, transform, and load part has started with the requirement of data for the business analysis. If you look at it, most of the companies, they don't implement one application that can take care of their financial needs. The financial data needs, their CRM data, their sales data, their HR data, their employee data. There are several kinds of data in the world. No system was robust enough to handle all kinds of business activities, and that's why you would see multiple systems. It can be, I just have listed most popular systems here. It can be people might be using Oracle as their, application, or SQL as their application, Salesforce, a cloud computing application, or if they were, basic users, then they would be using, flat files, XML, Excel, or any kind of, basic applications like PeopleSoft. So the moment they realize their business is growing and the needs of data is growing, they will try to move towards, most robust systems like SAP, or building a data warehouse, or any other market popular application that can take care of all kinds of business solutions. Which means SAP ERP system is one of the most powerful systems where it can most powerful applications where it can handle more than one business operation. So people plan to retire their legacy systems. As Vandana was telling, they wanted to move towards a new application. That's true. Now the challenge is, how can I connect to different environments in order to achieve this? The very important thing is, can I just write some programs in order to extract data from all kinds of systems? The answer is yes. You can definitely write programs. But why can't we? Why can't first of all, let us not talk about at least the tool. The tool is the last thing I would try to look at. So the first important thing is, let us say I assume I'm trying to write some programs in order to extract data. In this step, what are we doing? we are going into different source applications and trying to fetch the data and put it at some place so that we can start standardizing or transforming into a structure that we intend to move to, into the new application that we move to. So while doing this, if you look at 30 years back, still the data extraction was there. It was not really much usage of tools. Data was there in Excel sheets, data was there in notepads, and people used to start moving them into computers. However they used to do. It can be a small Java program, it can be Fortran or C or COBOL, any kind of program. COBOL is one of the best, very well-known business languages even today, because mainframe machine can understand COBOL language, and we used to store huge volumes of data in mainframe system. So the very important thing is, how do I connect to these all kinds of source systems? I have pieces of data in Excel sheet, I have pieces of data in notepad, I have pieces of data in an IBM mainframe machine. Definitely, if you are skilled enough, you can write a program in order to do that. That is not a problem. But we'll have to understand that the extraction is required because you are trying to retire your existing system and move towards more sophisticated and more business-oriented applications like SAP ERP system or Salesforce cloud computing system. So then comes the question: why do we need to transform the data? Why do we require? Why are we trying to transform, and what are we trying to transform? So, would you like to take that question, Vandana? Why are we required to transform some data here?
Because the format in which it existed in the legacy system might not map back to the target system. So you have to...
Yes, one of the reasons is the format of the data, because your legacy application was in a different shape than your new application. It is as simple as, I take the example of kitchen stadium where you wanted to cook some chicken biryani. Chicken should not stay like chicken in order to become biryani, right? So you have to transform it. That is where we are using this transform step. That is one important part. But there are more flavors to the transform step that we have to add, because we are cooking a biryani, not just the chicken. So, which means we are trying to merge data from different applications and making them to look like a single data set before we move it into a targeted application that can be a business intelligence solution, that can be a data warehouse, that can be an SAP ERP system, that can be a SAP BW system, a HCM system, a SRM system, whatever you call. There is a targeted structure. As I always use the example of kitchen stadium where you are trying to cook a recipe. So there are more than one recipe that we can make with chicken. So that's what we are trying to do in our transform step. Transform the data. Once the data is available in the staging, it is all on one platform and one database so that it can be easily prepared. Then we start filtering out the unwanted data and then try to standardize the format of the data, because we all know if you are being given an application in order to enter to join a university, if there were not many restrictions on the application and no one indicates mandatory fields, then we will be hesitant to put our phone number. We don't put our address properly. We don't write our phone number properly. We will skip the SSN number. We will try to give some dummy email ID because you don't want to receive all kinds of promotions that are there. So you try to avoid as much as possible, and finally only your name will be left over there, which also will be spelled improperly because we don't want it to get the call. That is one thing. The other thing is we are impatient. We don't want it to keep on typing 100 different lines of information. So we just try to skip unless someone makes it mandatory. That's just general human tendency, right? So if you look at it in the transform step, the first important thing that we're going to cover is profile the data to understand how it looks like. So without understanding what data we are trying to transform, how can we transform it? So the first important step is we would start to profile the data by writing some kind of a queries or take some data samples and then start cleaning it. Cleaning it is nothing but the cleansing operation that you will do so that you transform it into a standard structure. After you transform it into a standard structure, you determine there are duplicates, which means it's as simple as in order to cook your biryani, you have more than one kind of the rice, more than one kind of a chicken. Now you will be in a confusion which one to use. Then we will use a process of matching and identifying the duplicates in order to get with a golden record. A golden record is nothing but you are going to churn butter out of the buttermilk, right? But in order to get the best of it, you are trying to go through a process, introduce number of steps of cleansing, address standardization, use your data dictionary skills in order to fix certain aspects of the data, and then we will try to load into any other system. So the load part now. Why is it different? Vandana, if I might ask you, why are we trying to separate the step of transforming and loading? What are your thoughts around it? Why are we separating the process of transforming and loading?
Because transforming, I think, happens in one system, and loading, in order for you to load, you need two systems, right?
Not really. You are, partially right. If you look at it, one system that you're talking about is a staging environment, a staging database where you are trying to transform the data. That's true. But if you look at it, the easiest example I can give you is you have some chicken, you have rice and all kinds of vegetables that you require to cook a biryani. But you don't ask the customer to come and eat in your kitchen, right? Generally, there will be a presentation layer where there is a dining table for them where you garnish the recipe that you cooked and then serve it to them. So staging area is more like a kitchen stadium where you are processing the data, and finally the end target, which can be ERP application or data warehouse, will get the finished good, the finished or completely standardized data. See, finally data is loaded into an application or a data warehouse, usually into fact table, dimension tables. From there the data is combined, aggregated and loaded into data marts or cubes and is as is deemed necessary, which is again a reporting requirement. It is as simple as the example I gave is a kitchen stadium and the customer service area. Both will be different. You can't ask a customer to come into the kitchen stadium and have his food while you are cooking. So that is the reason we separate the staging environment. Staging environment is very specific only for developers, only for power users, only for technical people. Whereas the load environment is more for business people. We are loading into one place wherein you cannot go and touch it one more time. You don't have, you only have read-only access that you can go and ask the customer saying, how does the biryani taste? But if he says the biryani is not so tasty, chicken is not cooked, you cannot take it back and cook it again and put it to him. That you cannot do it practically. Same way, your target system is with a very limited access, whether it could be data warehouse or it could be an ERP application. You cannot really try to mess it up. You cannot really try to go and touch your production system and fix few issues that you might find. So everything happens in the part of the staging environment. So now we all know that, what is this ETL, process. Why are we extracting data? Why are we transforming data? And why are we trying to move data is assumed to be clear. But if at all you have any questions, please go ahead. And I do see one of the users joined as caller in user 4, and I'm not sure who that is. If you don't mind, folks, whoever has joined on that call, please let me know. I would be very happy to know your name before. Because you are not
Ganesh is married here.
So
Can you
you
hear
don't
me,
want to
Ganesh?
look at my screen, my friend? Yes, I do.
Oh, okay then. Yeah. Hey, this is
Yeah, but
Naresh,
you don't
man. I
want to
just
see the
joined.
screen?
No, I don't know. It's not coming up. Like in the WebEx, it's saying you're already in the meeting, but I don't know. I'm not getting anything here. Just a moment, we are
Really?
setting up your meeting like that message.
Wow. So Vandana, did you face any issues while joining on the call on the WebEx? So why
no,
don't
I was
you?
good.
Okay, so why don't you try Firefox or Google Chrome, Naresh?
Actually, I tried with Firefox first, and then I closed it, and now I'm trying with Google Chrome. Actually, I don't know what's going on.
Take your time. Take your time. No worries. We're also going to share the recording just after the session. And just in case you could not fix it, there is Shiva, there is Venkatesh that are on the call. One is the host, and you can see someone else as CLOUD9. So both are there. You can call our number 650-777-7200 so that they can help you just in case if that was a browser, if that was not a browser issue. If it is a browser issue, nothing we can do about it.
Okay.
All right, my friend. So I will just
keep.
I will just move forward with what I wanted to demonstrate, and then we'll go from there. So, any questions so far, Naresh or Vandana?
No, Ganesh.
Vandana, how
I'm good.
about you?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Fantastic. So now we all know that we need to extract data, transform data, and load data. But then, why are these tools becoming popular in market there rather than the concept? The concept of extracting data, cleaning data, and loading data doesn't require a tool. Why are we looking at the ETL tools? It is as simple as we wanted to keep ourselves, really make the work easy for us. So we wanted to cook faster, we need a rice cooker, right? We wanted to fry faster, we need a non-stick frying pan. So without all this, even people used to cook. Without a gas stove, even we can cook. We can fry with the firewood. But you all know that it is in the process of cooking, if you are not using the most market, available sophisticated kitchen equipment, your cooking process will be delayed, and you have to burn the vessels in order to make you a chicken biryani. But then, with the usage of tools, everything has become easy. Now we have dishwasher, we have microwave, we have refrigerator, we have half of the items that are ready-made. Our ginger garlic paste, our shan biryani masala, everything is ready-made, right? It makes our work easy. In the same way, the ETL tools have become popular in the market rather than the ETL concept or even the data warehousing concept. People misassume that learning Informatica is learning data warehousing. It is not. Learning data services is not learning data warehousing. Learning SAP Business Objects Reporting is not learning business intelligence, because you need to know how to make a recipe. Only then you can use your kitchen in order to cook it. So if you look at it, there is kind of a misconcept that people try to learn the tool rather than the concept or the theory behind it. Generally, whatever the tool we are trying to use in our projects is definitely they will do a tool evaluation. It is if you look at it, any organization, they have to go through this process during the data migration projects. There will be a team of people who are going to come up with this project timelines, what tool, how much is the budget and all. So if you look at it, there are a couple of things. I think I have covered this as part of my the warm-up session, but just I will go really fast on this slide. It is we have to evaluate the tool. Are we migrating to an SAP application or a non-SAP application, at least in this scenario? So how good is the tool? How can we trace? How can we measure? How much reliable is the tool for my data standardization? And then how accessible it is for the gateways, because most of the popular tools in the market even now cannot access all kinds of source systems. So when there is no possibility to access all kinds of source systems, customers feel it very uncomfortable, because when you start digging your source systems, you might find more than one legacy system, more than one database application that you need to go and fetch data from, and then you feel like, hey, this tool cannot perform this. It is as simple as you went to Costco and bought a huge toolkit, and surprisingly, when you came home, you don't find a screwdriver in the huge toolkit. Will you not be upset? The answer will be definitely yes. You have spent about $100 in order to get the toolkit where you wanted to screw and unscrew something. And your $100 toolkit has everything except the screwdriver, which means it is inefficient ETL tool. So we need to go and evaluate what is our requirement, which tool in the market is more compatible for my project requirements, and is it platform independent. So without making our tool platform independent, I have faced an issue in one of the huge organizations where they were having their systems on, if I'm not wrong, this happened like for 5 years back. They had an HP Unix system on which Data Services version could not install, So because of Data Services newer concept of 3.0 version, that company has to go again from scratch, install a new hardware for their Solaris machines, I think, and then they started migrating their ETL environment into a new platform, which is a cumbersome process. Huge amount of dollar is involved there. The other market hot requirement is standardization of the data. Though we call it as an ETL tool, how good it is transforming the data, how good it is to standardize the data. These days address requirements has become very, very important in every business activity. Without having a proper address, you cannot do a proper business, because everything is online. You don't come to see the product. Even now, if you go to some of the huge stores in United States, like Best Buy, even they say we can ship the product to the home. They cannot maintain the inventory, and they say online prices are the best available. If you go to even buy an airline ticket, they say don't visit our center. You get the best price online. So when everything is online, definitely you need to have proper address. Only then your credit card will be processed. Only then you would receive the good properly. Only then you can maintain good customer loyalty there. So address standardization is very important. And then reusable components. Why do we need reusable components? Business, we do. Can you assume that we would be moving into multiple systems every year? I mean, you don't want it to retire your legacy system every year and try to move away to another system. But why do we look at the reusable components? Any thoughts there? Why do we need an ETL program to be reusable? Any one of you, you can take that question. All right, so I will take it. So the reusable components are required because of acquisition. Companies are growing by acquiring other companies. That become very easy. Even a couple of days back, I heard my current project, the most recent project that I worked on, that company is taken over by a huge company called Entity Data. When the companies start merging together, definitely their data requirements will grow. You have to migrate the data. So it can be any kind of a source, but the transformation rules are the same, right? You have, made up all the transformation rules, and you are just waiting for the new data to come in to apply the same transformation rules. So we need to talk about reusable components, because clients look at it, very expensive every time to keep moving the data between systems. And then definitely any ETL tool right now in the market is a multi-user development environment. You cannot ask one person to be working and the other person working in the back, in the queue in order to get access to his application. No, It is always a multi-user development environment. And then when it comes to the multiple users, as we know, too many chefs spoil the meal. I go with that saying. And so your ETL tool should be efficient enough to handle these multiple cooks, or else it is going to fail your recipe. How about the failure recovery mechanism? Failure recovery, what does it mean? Why will the job fail? Why will it fail? It can fail because of different circumstances. If you look at it, you might have forgot to reduce the flame in your burner, and your curry is burnt. There should be a backup mechanism, right? So that's where the ETL tools can come to save our time, because if you look at it, when you are in the production system, if something fails, your turn back time should be very less. You should not expect, because we all know that even if a website is down, we are very impatient, saying, why are these guys not maintaining the website properly? It always says it is down. And if you go to irctc.co.in, which is our most visited site, is very slow. And we feel very pitiable that, it's been used as centralized system in order to perform all kinds of reservations in India. So if you look at it, measuring the performance is also very important. And, your tool should be very flexible to do metadata exchange, because of the requirements of data has increased fivefold, I can say. Every system needs data, and you need to be able to transform data or exchange data so that they need to speak the same language. It is as simple as everyone developed their own tool in their own language, and end of the game, we want everyone to speak in English in order to perform the project, right? In the same way, in an ETL in the ETL world, they will look at the reporting tools also talking the same language, interfaces talking the same language. So metadata exchange has become really important. And then availability of human resources. I would have built really a giant robot that can perform data activities in real good manner. But if I don't know to handle the robot, how can I use it? So availability of the human resources is one of the important things while they do the tool evaluation, because some of the open source tools which are used because of low pricing, and because of they are open source tools where it is easy to maintain and keep on adding user defined functionalities. But then if you look at it, who will do that? Human resources that you need to spend time building your own tool will be really cumbersome, and if no training is available with smaller companies, then you'll be at a situation that you'll have to do self-learning in order to start working. So ETL tool evaluation is more, this is one thing which I'm putting as logical information that is required to pick up a tool, but the physical information is whoever can market best, their tool is bought over. Irrespective of whether it is more sophisticated or less sophisticated, the more variant goes on to competitive pricing, and who markets best, who reach out to them first, and who can give some kind of a benefit because of implementing that particular tool. That is the reality. The physical evaluation of ETL tool is different from the technical and logical evaluation that we are going through. Still they consider all this before they try to purchase an ETL tool. So that's how, at least for SAP data migration projects and for SAP related activities, now the tool data services has become really popular in market. And if you look at it, we will come back and look at the ETL tool in a more detailed manner whenever we require it, because we need to know real good understanding. We need to have a real good understanding of terminology, architecture, and all kinds of utilities that are available in data services. But today, I'm trying to skip this topic and go with something really easy for you to start working from day one. So today what I'm trying to do is forget about what is a data warehouse, forget about what is your SAP system. Assume yourself as a businessman, whether you started your own business. Maybe it could be, you wanted to start a boutique. You had the boutique at your home and now you are starting it in a, 5-story building because your business has grown 5-fold. Then how do you migrate the data that is in your Excel, sheet, or you just had a piece of notepad that you wanted to load it into the table? So forget about heavy, expensive requirements of the market and clients. Let us treat it very simple. I wanted to load my own data into a database. Now I wanted to move into Oracle database or SQL Server, which are very popular and which are real good RDBMS that are available in market. How do I do that is a question. So if you know the traditional method of loading data into a database table is as simple as you write an program, like if at all you are using Oracle, you are writing an SQL loader program in order to dump your data from your flat file to your system, your database application. In the same way, if you had an Excel sheet, you would also do the same thing. You wanted to move to a new database and we wanted to practice that. I don't understand the language of data warehouse, still fine. I don't understand business intelligence concept, that's okay. I don't know what is this SAP ERP system, that's fine too. The simplest requirement I'm keeping in front of you in order to learn any ETL methodology is I'm going to give you some data in a flat file and an Excel sheet, and you are the one who is going to start writing programs in order to load them into a table. Does that sound good for you? No? Yes?
Yes. Yes, Ganesh.
All right. So if you look at it, I'm going to my second presentation wherein I will be starting to talk about data services in a practical manner. What is the important part of data services that we require in order to get in and start working. So that is what is in my second presentation. But let me not call this as a presentation. It is as simple as the reality. I wanted to show it to you. How do I use my tool in order to load or move data from my flat file into a database table. That is a simple concept and scenario that we will be trying to cover, and then we will give you a document wherein you can start working on it. Shiva has took enough time in order to prepare lab exercises and documents that are required for your practice. You see here, we have created this document. It took about couple of days for us to come up with this kind of a documentation and scenarios. So Satyavendana, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen now.
Sure. So we have created enough scenarios and exercises, and we have created these kind of documents that we will be sharing with you. This will act as your exercise. We are trying to put up enough information. It's guided really in an easy manner, and we try to cover every option that is required for you on your projects. And this document will be shared to you online, wherein when you are on the system, you'll all be looking at the same document, and there will be Shiva or Venkatesh who will try to address any kind of issues that you might face while you're working. So it's more or less like virtual classroom for 1 hour practice every day. Initial days, we need this practice. Obviously, after that, when you get interested, when you are able to spend some time on the tool, then definitely you will do it yourself. We don't need to be in the class in order to get that going. So if you look at it here, we have put up possible scenarios. Flat files having employee data is uploading into a CRM system. There's a comma separated file, and we have a fixed width file. So flat file location of the file is given dynamically and upload CRM system. So how do we give it dynamically will be a question. And we have created something like check if the file exists. If it does not exist, wait for 10 seconds until the file appears there. These kind of important notes we started putting together so that you can start practicing from the day one. And we are creating more and more of lab exercises, and it is as simple as when I log on to my system, you'll also be doing the same. And in the first hour, I will be showing how to do it, and in the second hour, you will be doing it. So more or less in a day, whatever you are appearing for, we are making 100% sure that you learn it, not just hear and leave. So you are going to make sure that you get benefited. We are going to make sure that you get benefited. So for tomorrow, when you join, you will have access to the system. And today I'm trying to narrate how do you need to join into this particular remote box wherein you can start practicing. So that is what I am trying to cover as part of today's session, so that tomorrow when you log in, we are going to work practically. So if you look at this one, it is as simple as if you have a remote desktop. Remote desktop is an application that comes with a default installation. You don't need to do any installation or you don't need to download any other utility. It is as simple as if you go to your run, if you try MSTSC, you will go to remote desktop. That is one of the options. Or if you go to your programs and if you go to your accessories, in here, you would also see the remote desktop connection. Anyhow, there will be a document that will be sent to you with your username, password, wherein you can log in and then try to see if everything works or not. So we will be sending it at least end of today, so that tomorrow when you have time, you start trying to connect to our box and see if everything works. Else Shiva will be able to help you, and Shinu will be able to help you to resolve any kind of access issues. So after you click on remote desktop, we will be providing you an IP address in which you just have to key in there, and when you say connect, it will ask you for your user and password. Generally, our usernames will be like ZCloud1, ZCloud2 kind of. It's like this. One of these usernames will be given to you, and if you punch in, then you are there. You get this kind of a warning, but that's okay. It is safe to join. So you just say yes, and it starts preparing a desktop for your own. And once the desktop is available, all you need to do is go into Start Programs and click on Data Services Designer. So that's all. You are there on a virtual box wherein you are trying to practice data services. It's a virtual classroom. Let me not call it as a virtual box, because we all are connected parallelly to the system wherein we are practicing, and just in case one of you have issues, you will be immediately given access to share your screen, wherein the instructor will look at it, and rest of all the students will also get benefited. Because the more problems you face, the more solutions you look into, the more experience you will turn into. Isn't it? So if you look at it here, even we will be giving you an username and password which you have to key in. So generally it will be your Windows Windows username and Data Services username will be the same. Generally it will be the same. Password might be different. So when you key in the username and password, this is what you will see. The DM repo ERP is an AO repository, which you'll start working on it after 15 to 20 hours of normal practice. So you'll try to go into your own box, which is ZCloud9 for example, and just say okay. If it asks for the password again, we still need to key in a password that will be given by the administrator, and then you can log into the system. When you are in the system, this is what you see. This is what is Data Services Designer, wherein you will start working on it. And now I'm going to explain about different components of Designer for you to start working with. So my second presentation covers it in a real detailed manner about data services designer and what are the various components of data services designer. So the fundamental capacities or capabilities of data services is extracting, transforming, and loading data from heterogeneous sources into a target database that is none other than a data warehouse. It can be an SAP application as well. It can load data into more than one applications, like not only SAP application, but also it can be an Oracle application, it can be a PeopleSoft application, it can be a Sybase application. It can load into most of the market popular applications. So right now we are trying to take an example of flat file, but it has more options. It can handle comma delimited files, COBOL files, Excel sheets, XMLs, and if I'm not wrong, from 4.1 there is more options that you can use SAP transport in order to extract data from SAP using an ABAP program. You can use SAP transport and then unstructured data formats. Every of that option will be explained to you. But then this is what we are going to do as part of the today's exercise. If you see, this is Data Services Designer. It is your play area. It is it looks like this when you try to connect to your own user ID. You will look at the screen like this, wherein everything is empty, crystal clear for you. And then the first important thing that we will be creating is a data store. Any idea what will be a data store? Because data store is a very generic terminology while doing any ETL programs or even when trying to connect to any of the systems. You use this data store as a very usual terminology, which also is part of data services. So any thoughts on why do we need to connect to a data store?
To store your data?
Perfect. Because we all know that we are doing transform operations. It is our kitchen stadium. So we need some backend wherein we can store our data, where we can stage our data. Let us call it as staging our data instead of storing our data, because staging is a temporary place where you put it, you process it, and then move it. So let us call it as a staging environment. So first thing is I need to create a data store within Data Services, because Data Services doesn't have a database by itself. You know that, right? Data Services is an application. It can be it can be deployed or it can be installed on Windows or Linux platform. That is true, but then it requires again a database. Data Services cannot store the data by itself. That is what is important point that you need to understand. It needs a backend database. The database can be Oracle, it can be SQL Server, it can be MySQL, it can be Sybase. It can only do to certain systems. Even it includes HANA as well, because it's the most recent inventions of SAP, wherein you can have your database on the HANA system itself, HANA box itself. So the first important thing I'm going to show you is how do we create data store. So metadata is data about data. We all know that. So data store provides a logical channel to talk to a database application. So tomorrow when you connect, you are going here and you are trying to create your own data store. Let me do it right away, and also you'll be doing it, because you'll get a lab exercise wherein you'll have narrated steps how to create a data store. So if you see here, this is what is called as a local object library. This is the project area. This entire right hand side is called as a designer, in which you'll go into this particular data store object right click and say new data store. And generally, whatever I do, it's a best practice to maintain some kind of a naming standard. So we will give it as a DS underscore, which means data store underscore, data store underscore, I will call it as DWH staging. Database type is, you have all, database, data store type is database, and then you have all the options on what database that you wanted to store your data into. So it has all these, options from which we will try to pick up only a couple of them, which could be Oracle or SQL Server. Which one are you comfortable with, Oracle or SQL Server? I will take the same as example.
I don't know both, but you could do Oracle.
All right. Vandana, what I can recommend for you is, if you drop us an email, we will provide you 16 hours of videos wherein you can watch at your leisure. It's available on YouTube. Just listening to it will make you
if your
proficient in
database is SQL, then, all your queries will be SQL query, or does it matter whether it's Oracle or SQL, you only do SQL queries?
Yeah, it will generate the query that is understandable for that particular database. If it is Oracle, it will generate Oracle-specific queries, whereas if it is Microsoft SQL Server, it generates its specific queries, which means it is more about the functionality.
No, my question is, if I have to query the database, right? Like, let's say I want to know how many records are there, or I want to query the database. Yeah, so if I do Oracle, also my language, the way I query it is with SQL statements, or?
Yes, whether any database, in order to access data, you need to write queries, and it is universal language. The structured query language is the same, except that if you are trying to use some functions, it will be a little bit different between Oracle and SQL Server.
Oh, okay.
It will be very basic difference. But if you look at those videos wherein I explain the standard structure of a SQL statement, which is, select the list of objects from the table, and then you have a where class followed by a group by class, followed by a having class, and followed by an order by class. That is standard within any database. You run that statement in any database, it works. But exceptionally, if there are functions, for example, conversion of date, Oracle gives you a to-char or a to-date function, whereas SQL Server gives you a cast or convert function. Cast is C-A-S-T, not C-A-S-T-E. So it is platform dependent. SQL Server is platform dependent, whereas Oracle is platform independent, because it works on any kind of operating system, whereas SQL Server works only on Windows.
Oh, okay.
All right. So here we have to just pick up, the database options, the kind of version that you are going to be working on. On our lab, we have 11G, and then the host name. We will provide you with the host name. We will provide you with the SID, and then port number is default, and the username and password. So username and password will be also provided to you, specifically for you to have your own environment, and some of them will be generic. Like in the corporate world, you'd have a central repository where you can share the data, share the metadata between two developers. That we will look at it a little bit later. TLS is nothing but it is a very simple file where you have information about how to connect to your Oracle server. Right now I am on a client mission. Right now I am using Data Services. Right now I am on a client mission, but my server is located somewhere else. So how do I connect to that server? So for Oracle, it requires one extra step in order to create your TNS files. Only then the TNS can be copied to any other system after installing Oracle. If you have if you have the TNS entry, only then you can.
It's like a
log
ping command in Linux, right?
Ping is just to check whether you are able to connect. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is a little bit similar, but here it is even more specific. There is something called as listener. There will be a port number that is associated for you to connect to Oracle database. Whereas ping is not port specific. It is more like you are trying to access the operating system level, whereas this is the database level, which is a little bit slight difference between those two. All right. So here we created the data store, the DSDWH staging. Now we have the staging environment, and what is the exercise that I wanted everyone to do is, I will give you a flat file and you have to extract data and load it into this staging environment. First, I will do it myself by taking a very simple flat file, and then you all are going to practice in tomorrow's session. That will be of the highest priority for you to start working with. All right, any questions so far?
Fine, Ganesh.
All right. Before